So everybody knows the name Magnus Carlsen. He's dominated top level chess for centuries, it seems. Who's going to be the next Magnus? Today we're going to be looking at games from the winners of nationals. So I have a lot of students, and a lot of my students went to nationals in Florida. They had an elementary school section, middle school, high school. Today we're going to be looking at amazing games from each section that show absolute precision. Ironically, the elementary school game is the most accurate of them all, so we're going to start with that. This guy, Prakash, woke up and he's like, it's game 7. Game 7, final game. I'm Magnus. This was a nearly 100 accuracy game. Try to follow along. You know that old show that used to be played, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? This is literally that. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Can you solve the position he just solved? We're going to be looking at the whole middle school game, the winner of the middle school section. And we're going to be looking at half of this elementary school section because this position is fascinating. It stemmed from a ready that transposed into an English. And we arrive here in an equal position. Equal. Play white. What do you think white's first move is? To back it up one move, black just played the move knight to b3, hitting this rook. So some people might say rook to b1. Does that look like a Magnesian move? No. That just passively guards the bishop. And it's just passive defense. You don't want to play passive defense. You want to play actively. Rook to a7, hitting this bishop here on b7. And the reason I'm shining light on these people is because, yes, overseas people are GMs at age 12, yada, yada, yada. But we can't skip over these games. I mean, these are beautiful games that go unappreciated. They deserve to be appreciated. So rook to a7, hitting the bishop. Can black afford to lose this bishop? Like, can you really get away with taking this bishop and then losing this bishop? No. So black plays the switch. Bishop takes knight, the best move. You take with the bishop, avoiding the doubled pawns. More importantly, this is a very good diagonal for the bishop. And the position is still equal, but black has to play the move e5 and bishop to c5, trying to get castled right away. Instead, black took this bishop. Now, it's obvious that black cannot take the bishop with the rook, right? Because you would ensue this position, which is actually just checkmate. You know, it's like there's pawns there. It's back rank because white is guarding the escape squares. So black took with the bishop, and this is what makes this game phenomenal. Phenomenal. There's only one winning line, and Prakash proceeded to turn into stockfish for the rest of the game. Elementary school. I want to stress that. This is insane. The only winning move, some people might say knight c7. You can follow down that line. There's nothing there. Knight takes d4. He positionally sacrificed the bishop on c1, saying, hey, your knight is in the gulag for the rest of the game. The knight can't get out. And he routes it over to a better square. Now, what is black going to do? Of course, he's going to go e5. Or she, rather. Sorry, Sophie Lee. Probably also a good player. She just had the unfortunate pairing of facing Prakash. Vivan Prakash Malai. Remember that name. Kid is going places. Pawn to e5. Opens up this dark squared bishop for development. Kicks the knight. Prakash is like, I'm just going to give a check. It's not a spite check. King to d8. Finds the only winning move. Not taking the knight. Rook to d1. A discovery on the king on the d file. And the king cannot move anywhere. They go bishop to d6, blocking the discovery. Mate in 7. Knight to e6 check. The king cannot move. The knight has to get taken. The bishop gets taken. The king cannot move. Knight to d7. And after this, she just resigned. So, an absolutely phenomenal game. This really, I'm impressed. I was impressed by this game. Now we're going to go to the middle school section. So we have an FM playing with the black pieces and we have a CM playing with the white pieces. This game is going to be less accurate, but it's going to be a King's Indian, and what's more fun than the King's Indian? We have Brian Enming Lin with the black pieces, that's the FM, and Chirukuri Nitesh with the white pieces. So we get a King's Indian and H3. What's the point of H3? Well, you guys know F3, that's the same-ish, where you try to expand with G4, H4, and just attack them on the king side. H3 is a little similar. It basically tells black white is going queenside, which is less common in the King's Indian. Usually they both castle king side, black attacks on the king side, white attacks on the queen side, like a bayonet. But this stops the knight from coming to G4, so essentially it says, hey, I'm castling queenside. Now, should you break with E5 or C5? If you guys play the King's Indian, you know more often than not you break with E5. However, that is if you are attacking on the king side. Which side of the board is white attacking on? He's attacking on the queen side because white's king is going to the queen side. So C5 is the better move. You might be like Balkan Dad, you just blundered a pawn. Trust me, it's theory. If pawn takes, you do not take back because that would be the blunder of a pawn. What you do instead is you go queen to A5. You go queen to A5. You might be like, why are you giving up all your pawns? I'm not. I mean, I am, but I'm not. Look at this. Who is stopping the ensuing attack? Nobody. Nobody is stopping that attack, and black is way better. I turned the bar on. We're on lead chess, but that's okay. I promise you guys will survive. You're going to make it through another day. I know lead chess is not as user-friendly to some, but you'll survive. We get knight to F3, queen to A5 still. All right. I would assume they're in theory. And after the knight comes to C6, you're taught to go D5. And this is where the game gets interesting. Knight to D4. So this knight jumps into the center of the board and it's immovable. What do I mean by it's immovable? I mean it's immovable. If you take, what is the tactic? You must be familiar with this if you play a King's Indian, if you play against a King's Indian. Always look at this sacrifice. Typically it works. Here's one example of it working. You got the bishop pair, white's position, no bueno. So this knight is immovable. So you might be like, oh, I'm just going to develop. No, you're not. Black is threatening a tactic. Did you spot it? The tactic is knight to b3. This queen on a5, yes, it was pinning the knight, but now it's pinning the pawn to the rook. This is a fork. Black is picking up material. So white castles queenside. That was the game plan. Now I love it. The FM is like, I'm going to go pawn b5, ripping open the position. This is a good call. It's kind of like a banco, but in the banco, you know, white's castled on the king side. Here, white's castled on the queen side. So you really just want to give up these queenside pawns and rip open the position. They can't take with the knight because of queen takes a2, so they take with the pawn. Now, black did not have a good read on the position. Most of the time you follow b5 with a6, and that's what he did, but this is an exception of a position. He had to go e5, gluing the knight into the center of the board, where it's just too powerful. White was a CM, so I'm assuming he knew en passant was a rule. But black would take with the bishop, connecting his rooks, and it's just a good position for black. Everything, look at this. Say bishop takes knight, right? Logical. White's winning another pawn. Black is going to claim the c-file. There's a lot of open lanes to white's king. You might be like, I'm going to close some lanes. But this is a perfect example of exchange sacrificing. So black is down a rook, but he has full compensation, and he's actually going to go on to win this game. There's just too much pressure. So e5 would have changed the tide of the game. Instead, we get a6, and this is not what the position called for. There's still counterplay. Right, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes. Pawn takes, how do you recapture? Recapture with the piece you haven't yet developed, that is the bishop. And then we get bishop to a6. White plays knight c6, which is actually not a good move. It looks super logical. Black misses his chance for 2 moves in a row, so we'll look at it the following move. We get queen c7, a4, and actually, let me show you. Knight c6, remember this tactic, knight takes e4? It's still a move. It's still a good move, mind you. This knight is tied down to this bishop. White would take the queen. Black would take the queen, and this is just going to fizzle out into a draw. Let's say bishop takes c3, pawn takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, and it's a draw. White's up a pawn, but his pawn structure is split. You have this Banco pawn structure. We've done videos on that pawn structure. That would fizzle out to a draw. Maybe Black thought he had chances. Maybe he didn't want to draw. Maybe he's like, it's game 7. I'm on board 1. Winner takes all. Respect. Except the winner ended up being White. Pawn to a4. Now he's essentially solidifying the queen side. Almost like glue, so that there's no openings. And he's up 2 pawns. So he tries to get the knight in the game, and he does. We get king to b1. Okay, he had to go king c2 to be able to lift the rook over. But it's equal. It's equal. Easier for White to play. He took with the bishop. You could take with the pawn to try to go knight d5. You could take with the bishop, and Black throws the game. But it's still going to be an interesting endgame. Black is going to have chances. Why is bishop b7 a blunder? Because of the switch. Because of knight to b5, kicking the queen back, and then queen to b3 guarding the pawn. Black takes, White takes, and we get queen to b6. Should you guard the f pawn or the c pawn? Which pawn is more valuable? I would say the one that's 2 away from promoting. Rook c1, queen takes f2, now what? White goes into risky territory. In a heartbeat, I'm playing rook c2 and c7, but instead he goes c7 first, allowing Black to take the pawn. And now it's not so easy. There's only one winning move. He does find it knight to a7, but this is a lot to calculate. If queen takes e4, there's queen c2 blocking the check. And essentially anytime the rook takes, you promote. That's the point of knight a7. It's not a blunder of a knight, it's a sacrifice. But Black is clever. He comes up with bishop takes b2. What is going on? Again, there's only one winning move. You can't exactly queen because this rook is tied down to this rook. You can't take the bishop because amazingly enough, there's a perpetual queen c2, queen b4. Not good. Not so good at all. So we get queen c2 blocking the connection of the queen to the bishop. Black can't afford to trade queens. Now White can take the bishop. We get rook takes queen. Rook takes, queen takes, check, king g7. How would you end this game? This is a position where I personally would have left everything on the board, but principle is trade when you're up, and that's exactly what White does, and he was comfortable winning this position. Try to play this out against an engine. It's not as easy as it seems because Black has a lot of pawns, and the quality of his pawns are very, very strong. But White knew how to win this. He brings his king over, trades pawns, doesn't lose a pawn, and then he just walks his king over to the h-file where it finds safety. We get rook t8 aiming up on e5. Black can't afford to lose the e-pawn and have split central pawns, and here White wins a pawn. He skillfully left his rook pawn on the board, at least one pawn on the board, and now he's just going to escort that pawn down the board, rook behind passed pawns. Look at that, rook on h and g. We get a, not a promotion, but okay, Black promotes to a knight, jokes, takes, and Black resigns. So I believe Nitesh went 7 for 7. Don't quote me on that. Maybe he had 6.5, but I think he had 7. And these games were nothing short of spectacular. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Peace out.